From the very first day in the mansion, Clara had felt a mixture of admiration and apprehension for Mr. Alejandro, her employer. He was not only an attractive and elegant man, but also someone who seemed to carry an aura of melancholy that awakened a curiosity in her she couldn't ignore. Yet Clara's heart was occupied. She was in love with Ricardo, the handsome and always kind driver of the family. Every smile from him made her sigh, and every gesture seemed to speak directly to her soul. But the problem was that Ricardo, although always attentive, had his eyes set on another direction. Mrs. Alejandra's wife, rarely seen, yet undeniably charming. Days in the mansion passed in routines and silent tension. Clara moved from room to room, fulfilling her duties while trying to ignore Alejandro's glances, which seemed to pierce her skin and reach her heart. Every small gesture carried a message she struggled to decipher. Once, while reorganizing books in the library, Alejandro passed behind her, and for a moment his scent and closeness made her shiver. Clara closed her eyes to regain control, but her heart raced uncontrollably. Ricardo, meanwhile, grew distant whenever Clara tried to approach him. Their shared laughter in the hallways became tense if anyone else was around. He respected her, cared for her, yet his thoughts were filled with impossible fantasies about Alejandra, the elegant and mysterious woman who always seemed to watch him from afar with a smile that mixed sweetness and authority. Clara suffered in silence, wondering why her heart would not obey her. One rainy afternoon, Clara sought refuge in the library after Alejandro had finished an important meeting with a client. Thunder rolled outside, and the wind stirred the curtains restlessly. Alejandro appeared with an umbrella, soaked but maintaining his usual poise, looking at her with a mixture of surprise and relief. "Clara, I didn't expect to see you here." "The rain," he said, his deep voice barely trembling. "I couldn't help it, sir," she replied, a knot in her throat. "The rain forced me to find shelter." Alejandro approached and leaned his umbrella against the wall. For a moment they stared at each other in silence, listening to how the storm seemed to frame that instant. He broke the silence with a whisper full of sincerity. "Clara, there's something I must tell you. Since you arrived at this house, I haven't stopped thinking about you. It's not just admiration. It's something deeper, something I can't hide." Clara felt her heart race, but quickly remembered Ricardo. Her thoughts swirled like a whirlwind, and a shadow of guilt crossed her face. "Sir, I can't return your feelings. My heart belongs to someone else." Alejandro nodded slowly, as if he expected it. There were no reproaches, only silent sadness that made her shiver. The following days were filled with small but meaningful moments. Alejandro began seeking excuses to see her. He needed help with documents, wanted to review plans for the house, or simply asked for her opinion on some detail of the garden. Clara felt how every kind word and smile hid genuine affection, different from Ricardo's. She began to wonder if her feelings had been misdirected all along. One morning, while helping Alejandro organize an old file, she found a letter he had written for her, never delivered. Her hands trembled as she read words full of sincerity, care, and a desire to protect her. "I've always admired your strength and kindness. If I ever could, I would like to be the one to make you happy," it read. Clara felt her heart slowly surrender to Alejandro's honesty. Meanwhile, Ricardo continued to be fascinated by Alejandra, oblivious to the growing connection between Clara and her employer. Every time she saw him talking to Mrs. Alejandra, Clara felt a knot in her stomach. Her attempts to ignore her own feelings for Alejandro became increasingly difficult. She began to notice details he could not hide, How he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. How his voice changed when speaking to her. How his presence filled every room with an invisible warmth. One afternoon, Alejandro invited Clara to walk in the garden at sunset. The golden light illuminated the wet leaves, and the scent of fresh earth filled the air. They walked in silence, yet each step seemed to bring them closer, and each unspoken word weighed heavily. "Clara," Alejandro said finally, his voice full of emotion, "I cannot keep hiding what I feel. Each day I realize I don't want to lose you. I don't want you to leave my life without knowing how much you mean to me." Clara, tears brimming in her eyes, barely whispered, I also, but I was confused. I didn't understand what I felt." Alejandro gently took her hand and looked deeply into her eyes. "It doesn't matter how long it took you to understand. What matters is that now you feel it," he said, slowly leaning closer. In time, Clara realized that true love doesn't always arrive in the way one expects. Sometimes it hides behind misunderstandings, unrequited feelings, jealousy, and mistaken glances. And sometimes one must have the courage to open their heart to what they truly deserve. Finally, on a clear, quiet night, with the moon illuminating the mansion's gardens, Alejandro and Clara shared their first true embrace, full of promises and hope. Both understood they had traveled a long path of doubts and confusion, but in the end, what mattered was the sincerity of their feelings. Ricardo, oblivious to the transformation unfolding before him, continued chasing an impossible dream, while Clara and Alejandro discovered that genuine love needs no fantasies or illusions. Only courage, patience, and the willingness to let the heart guide the way. As days passed, the connection between Clara and Alejandro grew stronger. They shared laughter, secrets, and small touches that would have been impossible before. Clara discovered the tenderness behind Alejandro's, and he learned to see the world through her perspective, full of sensitivity and passion. Lunchtime conversations, walks through the gardens, and shared evenings of reading built a bond impossible to ignore. Every gesture, every look, reminded them they had found something unique. Even light arguments about household tasks ended in laughter and knowing glances. Clara realized that true intimacy was not just passion, but understanding, support, and constant companionship. And so, among shadows, sighs, tears, and restrained smiles, a love story was born that overcame jealousy, doubts, and misunderstanding, reminding them that sometimes the heart must stumble before finding its true destiny. In the mansion, the air felt lighter, and every corner held a secret shared between them, the certainty that they had found happiness in each other's arms, and nothing could change that.